Hello, hello. Can you see me and hear me okay? Hi, Rumi. I am I am excited and nervous for today's stream. I'll say that. Um, yeah. I was just in the Discord. Henry was trying to get caught up to where we're at, and Blue was explaining the things that happened in like the last stream and a half. And I was kind of catching up myself because I so much happened in the last, stream and a half that I was like, wow, I'm already forgetting these like random details of things that happened because it feels like it's been like a million years. Hi, Nina. Um, yeah. Oh, I just need to let y'all know I need to end this stream like a tiny bit early today. I think around like 4:45 is kind of my cutoff. Because right now my car is in the shop and like I need to pick up my girlfriend from work. I'm using her car. So that I never I never end early. I'm bad at doing that, but I will figure out how to do that today. I might end up having to like end in the middle of a chapter or something weird, but hopefully in a good spot. Um, so yeah. Um, Yeah, oh, thank you, Henry. That would be really nice. Yeah, I'm hoping I will remember myself, but if you or somebody pings me, that would be really cool. Yeah, around like 4:45. Um, and unfortunately, I live in a college town and it's just exactly the time that all the students are back, so like the roads are chaos right now. But yeah. Um Yeah, the last stream was a a lot of information, and um I don't know. We're actually pretty close to kind of the end of the main story because I think there's a lot of extras. But basically like the main story is going to end and then there's a bunch of extras and I can't comprehend how close we are to like the end. Because I'm like, how are we going to settle all of this stuff in such a short period of time? Um, Hi, Zareem. Is that how you say your name? I saw you in the Gay Watch Discord. Thank you for popping in. I forget, had you read Yuwu already? Or are you like a new reader? Okay, you've read it. Okay, good. So you know what the heck is going on. That's good. So we're on page 69 for chapter 194, which is called The Depth of the Sea. On the distant battlefield, the cultivators heard a deafening whistle. The world seemed to come apart as a colossal whale, large enough to obscure the sky, soared from a tower in the Imperial City. That whale roared and howled furiously, its spiritual form larger than anyone had ever seen. Trying to imagine a whale roaring. It's a little weird. Hua Po-an, locked in combat with Jiang Fuli, looked up. This Tuntian, unleashed by Mo Shi, no longer had the appearance of a holy weapon. In that glorious dawn, it took on its magnificent true form. It raised its head, and rain fell over the city. Every street was bathed in golden light, and a rainbow arced across the sky. The spirit-blessed beast, a soldier cried. Hua Po-an paled. When did Chonghua create a spirit beast? Jiang Fuli had been heavily injured, but still gritted his teeth and fought on. Likely a long time ago. Hua Po-an, you are the one who has underestimated the human heart. The human heart? Hua Po-an sneered, his expression dark and crazed. In my lifetime, I've been a slave, a king, a guoshe. I've changed my identity and experienced all manner of things. I've seen all there is of the world's unfairness. What good is a human heart? It's no more than the heart of a beast dusted with some gold. A wretched, useless thing. He narrowed his eyes. Human hearts have always been as savage as those of beasts. History is written by the victors. Because my ancestor made a mistake, his descendants were slaves for hundreds of years. I, Hua Po-an, put my faith in slaughter alone. I've never underestimated a human heart, but you, Preceptor Chen, you're the one who put too much faith in humanity. You've always thought too highly of these people. He leapt directly at Jiang Fuli's chest. The strike angled for his heart, then twisted so that he struck Jiang Fuli's shoulder. Seeing Jiang Fuli at the limit of his endurance, Su Yuro wailed, "Fuli!" Hua Po-an's face was cold and fierce, his eyes glistening with bloodlust as he flicked her a look of scorn. "Shut up, you bitch. You seduced him and made him betray me. I haven't yet settled the score with you. Guoju, spare him, I beg of you. I was the one who took him. I was the one who erased his memories. Even after he forgot everything. He still remembered that water-parting sword manual he once gave you. A sword of 5 years turns the seasons. A sword of 10 years turns back time. This sword's edge sharp enough to part the waters. This life too short to part my heart from yours. It wasn't him who betrayed you. It was me." Hua Po-an's expression flickered with hesitation. Su Yuro thought only of Jiang Fuli's safety. Seeing him pause, she pressed on. He always remembered you. Please, don't hurt him. I'm begging you." "Don't plead with him," Jiang Fuli snapped. Finally, unable to suppress the pain of his internal injuries, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Leaping a few yards backward, he leaned on his sword and panted. "Hear this, Hua Po-an. It is true that I still have some memory of the past, but it is only because I loathe you. The only reason I remember you is because my hatred for you is etched into my bones." I don't think that's what he wanted to hear. Hua Po-an narrowed his eyes, staring at Jiang Fuli in silence. A flash of fear seemed to surface within that madness and cruelty. Jiang Fuli's breaths were labored. In this life, regardless of whether I'm Jiang Fuli or Preceptor Chen Tong, I have only one thing left to say to you. The fear was stronger now. Hua Po-an's expression shifted as he shouted in fury, "Shut up." He knew what Jiang Fuli would say. Those words Chen Tong hadn't time to voice before his soul scattered. For centuries, through every obstacle and opportunity, those words had echoed in the depths of his nightmares. The citadel of fear in his heart had weathered the storm for hundreds of years, yet today, Chen Tong's condemnation was the bolt of lightning that would bring it crashing down. Jiang Fuli gazed at him in the whistling wind, his expression containing both the cold indifference that belonged to Jiang Fuli and the grieving sorrow that belonged to Chen Tong. All the hair rose on the back of Hua Po-an's neck. His shouts took on a shrill note of panic. "Shut up! Shut up!" Jiang Fuli's lips parted. Those words of eternal goodbye that had remained unsaid for hundreds of years were finally spoken aloud in this uncanny reenactment of the past. "Hua Po-an, I'm sick to death of you." Hua Poan pressed his lips together, his expression distorting. He looked like he wanted to laugh out loud, or like some festering, centuries-old wound had been jabbed. His face had gone pale, and he stared oddly at Zhang Fuli, his pupils contracting. His face terrified Su Yuro. Fuli, stop talking. But Zhang Fuli went on despite her warning. Back then, it was Chen Tong who brought you out of slavery, took you in as a disciple, and gave you the name Hua Poan. Today, I've come to take back this name on his behalf. From now on, you may be the Guasha of Liao, the king of Liao, a deathless demon. You may be whatever you choose to call yourself. But you can never again be Hua Poan. A weighty pause. Chen Tong has no disciple with this name. Hua Poan's eyes were like two slashes of blood, their whites spiderwebbed with scarlet. Shizun, he snarled, gnashing his teeth. This title is not one I can accept, Zhang Fuli replied tonelessly. Hua Poan's knuckles were white. Chen Tong, would you push me so far? I am not Chen Tong, said Zhang Fuli. I am a walking corpse that you dragged out of hell. Nor are you Hua Poan. You're nothing more than... He paused, his teeth chattering, but still enunciated every word. An evil dog, one he trusted in the biggest mistake of his life. Hua Poan froze as if struck by an invisible lash. Pain spasmed across that face where only malice had flourished. After a long silence, he looked up and laughed, harsh and manic. Very well, he shrieked. He tensed with rage, readying his next attack. But before he could strike, the massive whale swam out from Moshi's tower and rose into the skies. Amid shocked cries from the battlefield, the whale's form glowed with a dazzling, glorious light. Its call threatened to swallow the sky, and its massive tail seemed to touch the sun as it turned its nose and dove toward that surging demon-blood sea. It's the spirit-blessed beast. It really is the spirit-blessed beast. General Mo can summon the spirit-blessed beast. Hua Poan had lost control of whatever sanity he had. His strikes grew fiercer and more frenzied as he bore down on Zhang Fuli. The crowd's shouts didn't faze him at all. So what if he can summon the spirit-blessed beast? At most he can protect the Imperial City and hide within it. That child would never go so far as to die for a country where his lover is already gone. To give his life for these 9 provinces filled with deception and machinations. To sacrifice himself for the nation that denounced his beloved as the worst kind of traitor. But before he could say any of this aloud, Moshi had ignited the blinding divine light of the spirit-blessed beast and followed Tuntian, diving into the ocean of blood. There was a sound like a great clap of thunder, and the heavens and earth trembled. The soldiers of the Northern Frontier Army cried out in grief. Shiha Jun, General Mo. Hua Poan couldn't believe his eyes. Had this person gone mad? Was he insane? After undergoing such suffering, having lost all his kin and everything he loved, after being subjected to such cruelty from fate, why would he still choose to sacrifice himself for the sake of others? What did he get out of it? Why did he do it? Did this man harbor no hate, no selfishness, no desire? Who would make such a choice? In Hua Poan's moment of shocked distraction, Zhang Fuli saw his chance and swept out with his sword. Blood splattered as the blade sank deep into Hua Poan's shoulder. Hua Poan leapt backward with a grunt and looked down at the sinister gash, so deep he could see the white of bone. Standing in the bloody wind of the battle, Zhang Fuli hefted his sword and stared at the deathless monster Hua Poan. Hoarsely, quietly, with lips that dripped blood as they parted, he spoke. You don't understand, do you? You never will. But, pausing, he ran a hand along his blade, radiance blooming in the wake of his fingertips. Oh dear, there's art. A gale rose around him, marking this final match against Hua Poan. Your defeat hundreds of years ago outside Chonghua City will repeat itself today. Chen Tong wasn't the only person on this earth with the power to stop your wild ambition. The ranks of those willing to sacrifice flesh and blood to protect the people of this nation were never limited to Chen Tong alone. Their surroundings shimmered with power as Jiang Fuli threw himself toward Hua Poan. At the base of the tower, a wave of blood surged up. Within the protective form of Tuntian, Mo Shi plunged into the depths of the blood sea. Medicine Master Jiang, General Mo. The battlefield was awash in shocked cries, but Mo Shi could no longer hear them. He had already sunk into the ocean of blood. How strange. In these last moments of his life, he felt as if everything had suddenly become tranquil. Peering through the field of crimson clouding his vision, he quickly located the heart of the demon blood beast, sunk deep in that sea of blood. If he destroyed this heart, everything would be over. The blood sea would become a clear lake, and Hua Poan would lose his source of power and become a mortal who could be slain. As for Mo Shi himself, the words of the Reversal Stone's god echoed in his ears. The nine provinces will be saved, but you will die with the demon blood beast. Thereafter, you will be excluded from the wheel of reincarnation, never to return to this world. Mo Shi smiled faintly. No longer hesitant, he reached out and touched the pounding heart of the demon blood beast. Gumang had merged with the demon beast, and Mo Shi had embodied a holy spirit. Yet they had arrived at the same destination in the end. Well, before we get more of that, we need to look at the art of the battle going on. I guess everyone is dying today. Apparently. This whole arc is a beach episode, Blue. Yeah, Hua Poan, very, yeah. I feel like most of the people that Saint or Suto draws are like very attractive, and sometimes it's a problem. Floating in the depths of the bloody sea, Mo Shi spoke to the beating heart before him. Gumang, this is the path I've chosen. Wait for me. I'm coming. He brought his palms to its pulsating form, light coruscating through his fingers. When the spiritual energy of Tuntian and Jing Chen met, it wasn't with the fierce and murderous clash he'd expected. Perhaps it was precisely because the two hosts of the spiritual beasts had once been so deeply entwined that Mo Shi felt no pain, even as a violent undertow roared from the depths of the blood sea and dragged him down. He merely felt his vision growing blurrier and his body lighter. A sense of freedom that came at the end of everything. As the demon blood beast's heart was destroyed, the blood around him gradually transformed into clear water, spreading outward like ink on paper. Slowly, the sea of blood became blood no longer. The scarlet pit swallowing the 9 provinces became flowing water that nourished the land. Moshi choked up filthy blood. His spiritual energy was spent, and water was filling his mouth and nose. He could no longer breathe. He looked up, knowing he had come to his fated end. The reversal stone had given him 2 paths, life or death, and he had chosen the latter. Gumong had merged souls with the demon blood beast, but he still managed to blaze with a lifetime's worth of light. Since Moshi was the one fused with the spirit-blessed beast, how could he possibly lose to his Gumong Guga? A relieved smile spread over his face. Sunlight spilled down through the water like golden raindrops drifting around Moshi. The glow grew brighter and brighter, as if a glittering storm was falling between heavens and earth. That sweet rainfall misted down in a gentle drizzle. The world was at peace. Within that soft veil of rain, Moshi saw a silhouette slowly emerge. He stiffened in shock. The figure strode toward him with an easy grace, his blue and gold merit ribbon fluttering on his forehead. As he drew closer, Moshi could see his handsome, youthful face, his dazzling smile, his black eyes, his unmarred body. Beaming at Moshi, he walked out from the depths of the lake. Gumong. Moshi, who thought he'd never know pain again, who thought he had no more attachments, felt a sob wrung from his throat. It's Gumong. But this Gumong wasn't the same man who fell into the lake. He looked as he had more than 10 years ago, the first time they had reunited on the battlefield, when Gu Shixiong had stepped away from the bonfire and reached out toward the lonely boy Moshi had been. Shixiong, Moshi rasped, the rims of his eyes red. Is it you? Is it your shade, your soul? Or is this merely a final hallucination before I die? There was no answer. The vision of Gumong walked up to him, just like he had all those years ago, just like when they were young. He reached for Moshi's hand, murmuring softly to his lover, sinking deeper into the water. Moshi, we're home. The war has ended. It's all over. Let's go home. We've come home. That's the end of the chapter. Sorry, Henry, what was the Hades Town reference? Do not with the home motif right now. Um, if there wasn't quite a lot of book left, I would be, like, even more devastated right now. That's kind of the only thing keeping me together is like, well, there's a lot left. Oh, my mic. Okay, one sec. Okay, I think I know what I did last time. I'm just gonna unplug the mic and replug it in and hope that fixes everything. Oh, okay. Hopefully we're good now. Tell me if it does that thing again. So, okay then. We're on page 79 for chapter 195, which is called Grand Finale. And I want you to notice where we are in the book. I know there's a lot of extras, but I'm just like, yeah, we're at the end. Totally. We're here already. Moshi, we're home. These soft words, full of finality, lulled Moshi into slumber, then woke him from it. He didn't know how much time had passed when he heard the patter of rain. A faint voice floated above the murmur of the water, singing softly. Though he could make out neither the tune nor the words, he felt this melody was grand and melancholy, like nothing he'd ever heard before, as if it had come from the time of primordial chaos. Come home. When will they come home? He caught the words in blurry snatches. His lashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. Moshi was surrounded by endless cold mist. A fine drizzle fell from the heavens and onto his cheeks, but it didn't feel wet. The drops seemed to disappear into nothingness the moment they touched his skin. Everything seemed to flicker and sway. He blinked. Was this the underworld? Looking around, he discovered he was lying in a dilapidated little boat. Someone sat near him, gazing at the reeds on the distant banks, cheek in hand. The moment Moshi glimpsed his face, he bolted upright, blood rushing to his head. Gumong? At the sound of his voice, Gumong turned and flashed a smile. You're awake. Moshi felt like he'd taken a heavy blow. The pain in his chest turned into stinging at the rims of his eyes. Endless emotions surged up in his throat, but he couldn't say a word. He sat in the little boat, wanting to get a look at his surroundings, but his eyes refused to leave Gumong's face for even a moment. Perhaps sensing Moshi's tumultuous emotions, Gumong rose from the prow of the boat and stepped over to sit beside him. He took Moshi's hands in his own. Moshi's thoughts juddered. He lowered his lashes, and Gumong reached out to fold him into his arms. It's okay. Everything's over now. He doesn't say this part. It's all over. You've endured too much suffering. You've tasted too much torment. Now, it's all finally over. Moshi wrapped his arms tightly around Gumong. The mist on the river was thick. They couldn't see anything clearly. All that was real was the person in front of him. He could touch him, could be at his side. You're still alive, Moshi choked out. Gumong drew back. Patting Moshi on the shoulder, he grimaced. Yes, still alive. But once this boat reaches its destination, it'll be time to go. This is the Soul River of the underworld, Gumong answered. We are both already. He fell silent, but Moshi understood. One of them had died in the demonic blood sea, while the other had chosen mutual destruction with the undying heart of the demon blood beast. They'd both gone to the Yellow Springs and reunited upon the Soul River where the calm waters ran deep. Moshi slowly gathered himself from within his earlier shock and turmoil. He gazed into Gumong's blue eyes, heavy sorrow filling his heart. Yes, they were both dead, but Gumong could still reincarnate, while he lowered his lashes, hiding the secret that flashed across his mind. His souls would scatter and leave the wheel of reincarnation, just as the god of the reversal stone had told him. But he didn't want Gumong to learn of this. This final stretch of time was all that was left of his and Gumong's lives. Seeing each other like this, one last time, was a show of mercy from the heavens. He didn't want it to be spent in sadness. All along, it had been Gumong who'd hidden secrets in exchange for Moshi's peace. This time, Moshi thought, it was his turn to comfort Gumong. He wished for Gumong to reincarnate with no attachments or regrets, to have a carefree and easy next life. I'm sorry. I dragged you down to this place. Gumong gazed at Moshi, pained. I still couldn't protect you properly in the end. Moshi gave him a wan smile, his voice low and a little hoarse. I chose it myself. River water splashed softly against the boat's prow. Gumong, I should thank you. If it weren't for you in the beginning, I might have become a despicable person after the Mo clan fell from grace, controlled by ambition and hatred like Murong Chen or Hua Poan. Thank you. You were the one who saved me. Gumong smiled and patted his cheek. You never would have. I didn't save you. I only saw the kindness in your heart. That was why I was willing to watch over you and to stay by your side, no matter what happened with your family. He paused, and the light in his blue eyes glimmered. His voice softened, and he pressed his forehead to Moshi's. I was willing to love you. Neither of them spoke again. The drizzle whispered down upon the Soul River, enclosing them in its warm glow. The two of them had loved each other half their lives, yet they'd never been able to stay with each other for long. It was only in this boat, heading toward the resting place of dead souls, that they finally interlaced their fingers, confessing everything with no regard for past or future. Moshi, I've always loved you. Me too. I've always wanted to be with you. That conversation, from what felt like many years ago, resurfaced on the road to the Yellow Springs. As Moshi broke into a smile, his voice grew husky and bitter. Me too. Only you. It would be nice if all my next lives had you in them. This time, Moshi said nothing. He knew he wouldn't get a next life. But when he looked into Gumong's clear azure eyes, the agony that surged into his heart was accompanied by equally intense tenderness and adoration. After a long moment, he smiled and gazed into Gumong's eyes. He spoke, voice slightly pinched. They will. I'm sorry. I've hardly ever lied to you, but I have to trick you this very last time. Gumong, I wish you well. We'll see each other again. The boat drifted onward. The mist was dense, with a hazy light flashing through it. Suddenly, they heard clamorous shouting from its depths. Moshi jumped, but Gumong said, Don't worry, I heard this earlier too. It's nothing dangerous. Look into the fog. Moshi turned and caught sight of other boats wavering indistinctly in the mist. When he looked closer, what he saw astonished him. Boats covered the Soul River's surface as far as the eye could see. In each sat a soldier wearing Chonghua's old battle armor. Exactly the kind of uniform the men had worn when Gumong had been a great general of Chonghua. Gradually, Moshi realized that those faces were familiar. They were smudged with blood, some very young, barely out of boyhood. They gazed back in the direction from which they had come, eyes solemn. Moshi heard drum beats rumbling out of the mist, heard the low and grave song of Chonghua's army echo over the surface of the Soul River. Tens of thousands of voices converged into a steady flow, overpowering the faint soul farewell song that emanated from the depths of the reeds. Our sons went forth with swords held brave, their blood and bones in distant grave. Last year this self was yet intact. Last night this body spoke and laughed. Your loyalty I safely keep. Your valiant deeds I freely speak. For when these heroes' souls come home, throughout the land shall peace be known. The instant he recognized it, Moshi could no longer hold back his tears. They fell and disappeared without a trace, like the rain on this passage to the Yellow Springs. Before you woke up, this boat stopped for a long time, Gumong said softly. The Yellow Springs rain fell, and this mist rose. Visions of the people I cherished most in life appeared in the mist, looking as they did when they passed through this place. I saw the brothers who lost their lives at Phoenix Cry Mountain. I saw Lu Junxing. When Junxing departed, he was restless. He sat on the deck, sticking his head over the side to peer into the river. Gumong chuckled hoarsely. I saw Auntie Lin, my mother. She kept looking back, her cheek in her hand. I knew she was thinking of me. As he spoke, tears rolled soundlessly down his cheeks. He carelessly dashed them away. Forcing a smile, he continued, I even saw my cousin. He wanted to tell Moshi about Murong Chuyi, but he couldn't go on. His life had contained too much suffering. His family had passed on. His friends had scattered. Only at the very end, on the way to the Yellow Springs, could he reunite with their shades. Moshi, I saw them all. I didn't expect I'd be able to see them again at the end. Moshi could hear the quaver in Gumong's voice. He turned toward him. Gumong was looking downward, but Moshi could see the rims of his eyes were red. I was very happy. Those comrades and brothers sailing through the thick mist, those shades of the heroes who died in battle at Phoenix Cry Mountain, were singing the Empire's song for martyred souls, filling this cold, wide, desolate river's surface with its solemn sound. Moshi reached out, pulling Gumong into his arms. He looked up at the crimson sky and softly said, It's over now. I'll stay with you for this last stretch of the journey. The rain gradually tapered off. Bars of faint golden sunlight shone through the heavy clouds, dispelling the cold of the Yellow Springs Soul River. I'll stay with you, Gumong, Moshi murmured. We still have our next lives. We still have the future. He closed his eyes, swallowing thickly. So this was how it felt to hide such a dark secret in one's heart in order to comfort someone, to keep him company, to hope he would enjoy the bliss of ignorance. Though it had been only a scant few moments for Moshi, he felt like his insides were being cut apart. Yet Gumong had endured this feeling for almost 10 years. More than 3,000 days and nights. His heart ached unbearably. He lowered his head and kissed Gumong's temple again and again. They didn't say anything anymore. Or perhaps there was nothing left that needed to be said. It was enough that they could stay with each other, tightly holding each other's hands. They'd never yearned for much else. As they continued their voyage, side by side, a familiar figure rose out of the mist, standing at the prow of his boat with his hands clasped behind his back. Moshi's heart began to pound. Father? He blurted. Mo Qingche's shade was reflected on the misty water of the Yellow Springs. At last, Moshi saw how his father had left the mortal realm many years ago. Mo Qingche appeared here as heroic and kindly as he was in Moshi's memories. Like Gumong's mother, he looked back the way he'd come, but his expression was calm and peaceful. Worry still touched his brow as he thought of his child in the human world, that little fireball. But he knew the spirit beast he'd left behind would protect his son, Moshi. Letting out a long sigh, Mo Ching-che murmured to himself, I hope you can walk a path with a clear conscience. Father, father, Moshi at last found his voice, hoarse with sobs as he called out to him. The 7-year-old fireball had never gotten to welcome his papa home, but now he finally had a chance to see him again. Whether out of sheer coincidence or for some deeper reason, Mo Ching-che's shade gazed across time toward Moshi and Gumong's boat. He smiled faintly. Little fireball, Papa can't stay with you anymore. But Papa will always protect you. Moshi stared at him in amazement. Perhaps, when Mo Ching-che had sailed the stretch of the Soul River on his boat, he'd also run into the cold mist of the Yellow Springs. Perhaps he knew that when the mist came, the dead would see those they were attached to in life. That was why he'd... The boat glided forward and passed through a Yellow Springs waterfall. Moshi could no longer hear his father's voice. Papa, Moshi choked out. Amid the crash of falling water, Mo Ching-che's shade disappeared. After the waterfall, the world changed. The cold mist disappeared, along with all those apparitions. Gumong reached out to reassure Moshi, but stiffened in surprise as he glimpsed something out of the corner of his eyes. Moshi pulled himself out of his sorrow and followed his gaze. We're at the end of the Yellow Springs Road, murmured Gumong. A ferry crossing overgrown with dying grass rose up on the shore ahead of them, with a silty path that stretched into the distance. The path teemed with the dead, and at its end, the city of the underworld loomed on the horizon, an eerie sight beneath the low sky. The prow of their little boat bumped gently against the sand. The journey of their life had reached its end. Everything was over. Looking back on their life was like looking at the Yellow Springs River behind them. The underworld river flowed into the east, the dead like its running waters, never to return whence they came. Let's go, Gumong rose, gripping Moshi's hand. He stepped out of the boat, then turned back with a smile. We still have our next life. Yes, said Moshi. We still have our next life. He held tight to Gumong's hand, caressing that familiar palm, swallowing that very last secret. Together, they stepped ashore. Their birth was different from others. Beside the spot where their little boat ran aground, there sat a man wearing a bamboo hat. As they stepped onto the sandy banks, the man rose. Presuming he had merely gotten tired on the Yellow Springs River, on the Yellow Springs Road, and had sat down to rest, neither Moshi nor Gumong paid him much mind. Yet as they made their way forward, that man called out after them, Gentlemen, please wait. I don't know how she's going to get them out of this situation, but somehow, I don't know, somehow Meatbun is gonna do the thing. Gumong turned. Moshi. Gumong. The man sighed. I've waited for you for a long time. How do you... Moshi began to ask how he knew their names. Excuse me. But realized he shouldn't view this mystical place through eyes accustomed to the mortal world. He changed his question. Sir, who are you? The man didn't immediately respond. He held out his hand before Moshi and Gumong's hesitant gazes, palm up, fingers outstretched. In the same instant, they both spied the pitch-black reversal stone sitting in the middle of his palm. Unlike before, the stone was glowing with a shimmering white light, as if a new divine power had appeared within it. Moshi raised his head to take a closer look at this man. Only a sliver of his face was visible beneath the bamboo hat. When he saw it, Moshi flinched. "It's you? From inside the reversal stone. You're that god who didn't do anything and left everything up to me." The god of the stone's spiritual form smiled faintly, his clothes fluttering in the breeze of the Yellow Springs. "Yes, I knew you two would end up here. I've been waiting for you. This reversal stone is the last thing I must give you." Gumong, sharp as always, narrowed his eyes. "Oh, so you're that rotten, lying rock god?" "I guess so." "You've told all your lies. So what are you doing here? Get out of the way." Gumong, holding reverence for neither god nor demon, didn't bother with courtesies. "We're busy with reincarnation." "Hold on." Moshi pulled Gumong back. He gazed at the god, heart pounding. He realized suddenly that he and Gumong were different from the souls around them making their way down the road toward the Yellow Springs. The other souls already resembled ghosts, but he and Gumong were still solid, made of flesh and blood. Could it be? Hope sparked in Moshi's eyes, his emotions surging. The god looked up from the stone and met Moshi's gaze. His eyes were calm and gentle as he regarded Moshi with a smile. Reversal stones do exist in this world, and they can truly reverse life and death, reverse dying and pain. That god's voice was low, husky, and warm. The underworld's scarlet spider lilies swayed on either side of the Yellow Springs Road, vivid as a wildfire. The god solemnly placed that glimmering reversal stone into Moshi's hand. "However, I am not the one who can set it alight. Only those who have undertaken its test can do so. The final choice you made convinced the stone to submit to you." Wind rose, the plants rustled, and the clouds of the Yellow Springs drifted and scattered overhead. The god spoke to the stunned Moshi. "You get only one chance to wield the reversal powers of the stone. It belongs to you, Moshi." Gumong turned toward Moshi. They exchanged a look of astonishment. A splendid sunbeam broke through the clouds, making their eyes dance with light. The next words from the man in the bamboo hat shook away the last of the gloom. "Make your wish." The little boat anchored at the shore of the Soul River swayed slightly, as if urging Moshi to speak. "Moshi, let it take the two of you home." Okay, there's a scene break. And wait, how much more is there of this chapter? Oh my god, okay, hold on. Um, it's getting close to break time, so I probably should take the break now, at the scene break. We're at the top of page 89. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to look, but there's one thing I saw. I don't know if I should tell y'all the first 3 words that I saw. Or not. Um, Blue, am I allowed to tell? I'm not checking the art, though. I just, like, was looking at how long the chapter was really quick. But yeah, I saw that it's long. Um, I'll just say that all I saw after the scene break is 1 month later. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna take like kind of a short break, just like a few minutes, and then come back, and then we'll find out what happened 1 month later and what happened in the meantime and how the heck this is gonna work. Because, presumably they have to pick a point in time to go back to try to actually reverse things because now they have an actual reversal stone. But like I don't know when they're gonna pick, how they're gonna do that. So I'm just Meatbun. What are you doing? Um, but yeah, I will be right back. Hi, I'm back. I made that a super quick break. Because I need to find out what's going on. Uh, Blue, the way that I looked at how long it was, like, I was on the page for the new chapter for like a split second, so I didn't see anything, thankfully. Um, but I'm really excited to get to the art when we get there. So, yeah, we're on the top of page 89. 1 month later, in the imperial city in Chonghua's capital, Murong Mengzi stood in the middle of a white marble floor carved with soaring dragons. Hands clasped primly behind her back, she watched the craftsmen hammering away in their coarse hemp clothes as they toiled to repair the destroyed royal palace. The dust of that final battle had settled, and Murong Mengzi had begun the process of rebuilding. She'd sent the artisans and cultivators to help the civilians rebuild their houses first. Only after Chonghua's residents were housed did she give the order for them to begin repairing the buildings used by the royal family. The furnaces Murong Chen had once displayed in the throne room were shattered, but the incense burners, shaped like gold beasts, with two delicate handles on either side, were still mumbling with their last breaths. His Imperial Majesty's fortune floods the heavens. His Imperial Majesty's glory fills the realm. The craftsmen swept the scraps of the incense burners into the sacks on their poles, then carted them away to be dumped in a wagon and thrown into the wilderness, along with the rest of the shattered debris of the old court. Glory fills the realm. The little golden beast whined and groaned, lying in a pile of matchwood and brick, endlessly repeating its mantra of flattery. It was only an object, after all, ignorant of its fate. Its gilt lacquer had been scraped off in the chaos, exposing the dark black steel beneath it. It was a miserable sight. Murong Mengzus shot a sidelong glance at that wagon laden with junk. When the terrified artisans greeted her, she offered them a warm smile. I can't speak now. I have no idea what's going on, and I can't talk anymore. Thank you for making the trip here. Taken aback, yet plainly delighted, the artisans answered her with a chorus of pleasantries. Murong Mengzi was still attired in her customary black robes with golden trim. Alone, she walked away to appraise the progress in the other halls once more. She'd asked the artisans to make them simple and modern. See, now I'm remembering something because one of the mystery figures that showed up either to assassinate Murong Lian or to tell secrets to Gumong to like uh you know make him go crazy. I'm pretty sure they were described as wearing black robes with golden trim. And I just like I don't know. I didn't remember what she normally wore or it just didn't click, but it's like clicking with me now. I definitely remember I remember it saying that. And I'm just like, Meatbun really lays out all the signs, and like you just don't, they're just not obvious until later. And then it's like, oh my god, like I should have noticed that. She, of course, knew the people of Chonghua felt a good deal of gratitude toward her for her actions. Everything dearly needed repair in the wake of the great battle, and her restraint in exercising imperial power had earned her praise and commendation. When it came to military achievement, however, the greatest praise went to Jiang Fuli, who had been the most successful in the battle against Liao. He was, after all, the one to defeat Hua Poan. Murong Mengzi hadn't witnessed their final duel, but the low-level cultivators present had reported that after Hua Po-an lost the power of the demon blood beast, he proceeded to fight Jiang Fuli, using his nine-eyed Qin. Hua Po-an had invoked 8 of the eyes on the Qin's body, which were each in turn defeated by Jiang Fuli. But he never allowed the last eye to open. Some thought the 9th eye must have held some shockingly malevolent technique, one Hua Po-an would avoid using, except in the direst straits. But even in those final moments, as Hua Po-an fell beneath Jiang Fuli's sword, the last eye on the nine-eyed Qin remained closed. No one knew what was hidden within that eye. Hua Po-an had never shown it to anyone. It was like a seed buried deep in his heart, one that would never sprout. Is it part of Chen Tong's soul? Or one of his souls? Is Hua Po-an dead? Mengzi had often heard this question in the streets and alleys, but the answers it garnered were different every time. Probably. Yes, I saw Medicine Master Jiang strike him down myself. His vital spirits scattered and turned into dust. But how can we be sure? Didn't he turn into a demon? Even if he didn't die, there's nothing he can do now. Murong Mengzi thought if anyone knew the answer to this question, it was Jiang Fuli. But no reply from him was forthcoming. Jiang Fuli and Su Yuro had left Changhua directly after the battle. The medicine master had said he never knew who he was, and all he'd done before had no purpose other than seeking riches. Now, he'd finally accomplished something that was about more than just money. Something that had been done wholly by Jiang Fuli, not Chen Tong, nor a puppet in his likeness. Perhaps this turn of events was what finally allowed him to travel with all of Chen Tong's memories intact. This time, Su Yuro had no need to seal away his feelings and memories. Perhaps somewhere on the long journey ahead, he would finally find an answer as to what he, Jiang Fuli, wanted in life. The medicine master wasn't the only one whose reputation had been dramatically burnished by that final battle. Wang Shujun, Murong Lian, now enjoyed the adulation of the city. Murong Mengzi knew, however, that Murong Lian's health was unsalvageable. His prolonged ephemera usage had siphoned years off his life. Besides, he cared for little beyond his own satisfaction. Gaining the people's recognition had fulfilled a long-abiding wish of his, but he'd long since grown weary of the affairs of the capital. When Mengzi had called at Wangshu Manor to visit him the previous evening, she'd found him drinking under the foxglove blossoms with the moon overhead. His illusion butterflies had fluttered to and fro in the courtyard, and his holy weapon Huqin lay on the stone table beside him. Murong Lian had finally reconciled the disparate parts of himself. He could summon to his side both the illusion techniques he loved and the music he'd once abhorred. Lianga, will you really not consider staying in the capital? Pulling away from his pipe, Murong Lian shot her an indifferent glance. No, it's a tiny little capital. This lord finds it claustrophobic, too stuffy to live in. So you plan to. I'll go north and play around in the fiefdom of my mother's clan. Murong Mengzi pondered this for a moment and smiled. Whenever Lianga gets sick of playing, do remember to come back. I'll keep Wangshu Manor in order for you. Murong Lian looked at her thoughtfully. Those fluid peach blossom eyes seemed to see through to the core of her. But Mengzi's smile and earnest gaze never faltered. That won't be necessary, said Muronglian. Lin Yi is a simple place. It hasn't seen true prosperity in ages. Your Guga has had enough of lavish fun. I'd like to accomplish something there in the future. What is Lianga thinking? It would be nice to establish an academy. Henry, I was just thinking, like, when is he going to mention Lin Yi? Because there's some brief moment where Muronglian had said that he thinks after all this stuff, he's going to go to Lin Yi. And I was like, huh? 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 um, it would be nice to establish an academy. What Chen Tong did back in the day was pretty interesting. I've had enough of being a lord. Now I want to be a headmaster. Frankly, the thought of getting called Wang Shu the Wise all day tickles me. But Lianga, Murong Mengzi said tactfully, you know the only academy of Chonghua is in the capital. It might be difficult to manage one elsewhere. Murong Lian voiced no objection. He took a pull from his pipe and slowly breathed it out in Murong Mengzi's face. Forget it then. I should just work to strengthen the nation. I'll see if I can quit this drug, live to a ripe old age, and focus on managing Chonghua. So is he not going to go to Lin Yi? No, we're going to look at the art. I want him to go to Lin Yi. Honestly. I want him to get out of here. Look at that. Henry. Blowing the smoke in her face is so hot. Murong Mengzi laughed. What does Lianga mean by this? Of course you're going to quit ephemera, and of course you're going to live to a ripe old age. Murong Lian flashed her a grin. It might be harder than you think. Silence fell in the courtyard. The illusion butterflies flitted around them, alighting on Murong Mengzi's shoulders. Mengzi glanced at them. If Lianga wants to go, then go. After Chenga passed, you're the acting emperor. If you want to start an academy in Lin Yi. She smiled. There's nothing I can do to stop you. This academy of mine will accept everyone, regardless of bloodline. It would be too boring otherwise, said Muronglian blandly. What do you think? Shockingly, Murong Mengzi had not the slightest disagreement with this proposal. Anything Lianga wants, she said. When she took her leave, Murong Lian didn't get up to escort her. It wasn't until she'd nearly disappeared around the corner of the flower-lined walkway that he knocked the ash out of his pipe and called, Mengzi, when the time comes to return to your true self, just do it. Murong Mengzi stiffened. Once you do, I'll be second in line. The closest person to the imperial throne was never me. It's you. Murong Mengzi didn't turn her head or respond. Her expression flickered. She wanted to ask, when did you learn my secret? Or even, why didn't you mention it sooner? But those thoughts crowding into her mind were all overturned by Murong Lian's easy abandonment of the throne. To her, the only thing that mattered was Murong Lian forfeiting his claim. She could let go of everything else. At last, she said, many thanks. If you need any assistance with the academy in Lin Yi, come to me in the capital at any time. With that, she turned to leave. Besides Jiang Fuli and Murong Lian, there was no one living who could compete with her in prestige. Still, the soldiers of Chonghua refused to give up hope. Their General Mo was so powerful. How could he die? Yue Chunqing led the cultivators of the Northern Frontier Army to dredge the Great River again and again, but they failed to turn up Moshi and Gumong's bodies. The two had very likely turned to dust in the Blood Sea. But the cultivators refused to entertain the notion. They'd rather believe General Mo and General Gu of the Northern Frontier Army might yet be out there, keeping that thin thread of hope alive in their hearts. On the third day, after the battle, one of the soldiers finally fished something up from the Great River. It was a luminous jade scroll, transformed from the Shuairan whip. Though there was nothing written in it, its appearance was enough to make the Northern Frontier Army boil over with excitement. They were certain Moshi was still alive. Otherwise, how could Shuairan still be glowing? Blue, you just know that he'd end up stealing the hearts of at least 20 Academy students. Murong Lian? Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. Murong Mengzi sat at her desk within the palace, annotating scrolls. The handmaiden Yuanyang still attended her closely. Yet there was a new and fearful hesitation in the girl's eyes when she looked at Mengzi. This handmaiden knew some things that others did not. Recently, Murong Mengzi had been invited by her good friend Zhou He for drinks. Though Zhou He was one of the emperor's men, he'd secretly harbored feelings for Mengzi for years. Now that Moshi was dead, he must have felt he finally had a chance. His invitation for drinks at night was more him testing the waters than proposing a chat between friends. Yuanyang hadn't expected Murong Mengzi to gladly agree. She'd expected even less that Mengzi would expressionlessly, and without the slightest hesitation, slip a dark red pill into Zhou He's cup at dinner. It was a fatal poison that would lie dormant for 2 months and then grant the victim a sudden death. The incident had left Yuanyang's heart in turmoil. Zhou He got along so well with Mengzi and had done so much for her. Even if Mengzi disdained his attentions, was there need to secretly poison him? Was this still the princess she knew? Yuanyang. At her mistress's call, Yuanyang startled out of her frightened thoughts with a soft cry. My lady. Mengzi pinned her with a thoughtful gaze. Watching her for so long, Yuanyang's legs began to tremble. You've been distracted recently, she said with a smile. Is there something on your mind? That's good. Oh, sorry. No, that's good. If you ever feel unwell, you must tell me. Don't make me worry. Yes, my lady. Also, I have a task for you. Mengzi unfastened her command token from her waist and handed it to Yuanyang. Take this token and go find Yue Chunqing. Tell him I want to borrow that jade scroll Shihajun left behind. Henry. I gotta stop looking up at the chat. Yuanyang acquiesced, and Mengzi sent her off with a smile. It was only after her figure disappeared that Mengzi's expression gradually darkened. You are, she sighed. Even you I can't keep in the end. Mengzi was left alone in the palace hall. She took an exquisite jade scroll out of her Qiankun pouch. It was an item Jiang Yixue had created for Murong Chen. He had been an unparalleled grandmaster artificer. Even the most extraordinary cultivators would find it impossible to tell that this jade scroll was a fake. Her neat nails devoid of cinnabar dye, caressed the golden fastening on the side of the scroll. She understood the dark schemes that were hidden in this counterfeit history recording scroll. Within it, Murong Chen had fabricated enough slanderous scandals to ruin Moshi. Everything had been pieced together from genuine scrolls. It would be hard to tell the difference between truths and lies. She was ready. Moshi had used the reversal stone to return to the past. There was a high chance he'd learned of the filthy deeds she'd done. No, it was more than a chance. He must have learned everything. That was surely why he used the holy weapon Shuiron to leave her a jade scroll before he died. That scroll probably smugly revealed how she, Murong Mengzi, was no innocent either. He must hate her for exploiting his gratitude all these years, hate her for scheming against him. Even in death, he had to tell everyone. He might even. A still more terrifying thought dawned upon Murong Mengzi. Her teeth chattered, shivers running down her spine. What if Moshi wasn't dead? The thought soaked her entire back in cold sweat. She could almost see that man's tall figure, pacing back and forth in the shadows of the palace hall, ready to step out from the darkness and into the light. At any moment, he would stare her down and say, Mengzi, I have a debt to settle with you. Girl, do you even know Moshi? I know, like, he he doesn't care. I mean, I guess he cares, but like he's not gonna do all that. She shuddered and jolted to her feet, knocking the desk over. No, no. She ran out of the hall, leaving that eerie, frigid hall behind her. Distantly, she felt that this was odd. When she'd schemed against Murong Chen, Murong Lian, or Zhou He, she hadn't felt anything like this kind of panic. It was only in this battle of wits with Moshi and Gumang. Inside her cold, hardened heart was a kernel of self-loathing, and this, the source of her fear. Among all her chess pieces, these two alone were true-hearted war generals whose loyalty to their nation had never wavered. She'd stained her hands with such pristine blood. This was her sorry. This was her stain of filth, a mark she saw whenever she bowed her head and looked inward. She would never be able to wash it off. My lady. Someone softly called to her. Mengzi snapped her head up and saw that Yuanyang had returned. She stood at the bottom of the steps, gazing fearfully up at her mistress. When she caught sight of Mengzi's bloodless face, the nervous Yuanyang jumped in fright. Trembling, Yuanyang ascended the steps and held out a brocade box. This is the jade scroll you asked for. Mengzi willed herself to calm, suppressing her fury, terror, and guilt. Oh, you're back so soon? Yes. Thank you. You can wait outside. She accepted the jade scroll Moshi left behind. Mengzi closed her eyes and retraced her steps to the palace hall. The cavernous hall was cold and empty, save for herself. Mengzi locked the door, then turned her anxious, unwilling gaze upon that wordless scroll. She was certain he'd left this for her. Just as she'd thought, when she opened the scroll with her own hands, pale golden text appeared on the originally blank surface. Moshi's elegant handwriting. She trembled with hatred. That's right, just as expected. Moshi would seek recompense for everything, down to the last pound of flesh. He would never let her off. But in the next moment, she froze. The text on the jade scroll had sharpened. Written in the beautiful script she knew so well, there were only two sentences. The stain of your guilt can be cleansed with the remainder of your life. It is my hope that you do not follow in Murong Chen's footsteps. Murong Mengze reeled as if she'd been struck. Her ears rang. What was he saying? He knew all there was to know of her dark schemes, yet after what he'd been through, he understood that the one on the throne was rarely unsullied. The path to the top was dyed with blood and slaughter. Some who wronged those around them on their journey, once they sat upon the throne, could still reform the world and govern with benevolence. Was that true? She had once been named one of Chonghua's three gentlemen: virtue, wisdom, and mind. It had been an empty title, and yet Moshi had written nothing of vengeance. She might have been false to those around her, but her virtue, with regard to Chonghua, might have been genuine. It is my hope that you do not follow in Murong Chen's footsteps. Mengze looked at those last few words without seeing them. After a long time, she lowered her head. Do not follow in Murong Chen's footsteps. She picked up her counterfeit history recordings jade scroll and looked at it closely. Then she channeled power into her fingertips and pinched it to dust. Mengze collapsed back onto the throne as if a weight had been lifted. She looked up as the sweat on her back gradually cooled. The merciless battle she expected had ended before it had even begun. She stared at the ceiling, the snarling totems of dragons and tigers carved on the roof beams reflected in her dark eyes. Her fingers gripped the armrests of the throne, slowly caressing it. It is my hope that you do not follow in Murong Chen's footsteps. She closed her eyes, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Moshi, you really were. She didn't complete the thought. She sat alone in the brand new palace hall she'd personally commissioned. There were 1,000 things still to be done. Right now, it was still and silent, but a new dynasty would soon be unveiled. Her heart thundered, rousing the war drums hidden in her chest for so many years, like endless waves beating against the shore. She'd been stained in blood and filth, yet the long-awaited light of the Imperial Ziwei star was finally shining upon her fate. Okay, so it took me a minute to like fully understand her reasoning here just now, but it just occurred to me that she doesn't want to follow in Murong Chen's footsteps because he like he failed at what he wanted to do and he died, and she just doesn't want to like suffer. So I think that she's not as like wrathful as him. So she just was like, I'm gonna make things easier for myself and like not do all that. Like I feel like that was just all the inner conflict that she kind of went through. And I also think that she has some kind of feeling for Moshi, but I don't really know what to call it. But I think there's something there that makes him more credible to her, maybe. It was the height of spring. Willow boughs bent low, grasses stretched skyward, and birds fluttered from branch to branch. 2 months had elapsed since Murong Lian bade farewell to Murong Mengze and departed the capital. 2 months since he left, which I think is more than 2 months since, all the stuff before. Presently, he was strolling along a riverbank in Linyi. He carried a willow branch he'd broken off, letting it swish slowly beside him as he walked. Henry, 3-month-long Shimong honeymoon in the underworld. The academy was under construction, set to be completed roughly at the end of next year. In the past few days, he'd been more than idle. He was free as a bird, his plate completely clear. But he did have many secrets to digest. The first of which concerned Murong Mengzi. She was now Chonghua's acting emperor, though some inflexible, conservative old nobles continued to mock her as unworthy of the throne on account of her gender. She really is the definition of girl boss. Murong Lian knew that very soon, once public opinion of Mengzi had reached its peak, she would reveal a secret she had hidden for 30 years. Changhua would surely scorn her then, but he was betting Murong Mengzi would be the final victor. This woman, no, this person, was too formidable indeed. Ordinary people were no match for her. For the 2 months she'd been managing the court, merely as the acting emperor, she'd worked hard to strengthen the nation, taking the opportunity while the most powerful noble clans were split and weakened to enact a series of new decrees. She had posthumously elevated Gumong and Moshi to martyred heroes with the highest honors. She made plans to fulfill Gumong's lifelong wish of abolishing slavery and opening the academy's doors to all. This new academy would accept disciples based on spiritual foundation and innate talent, regardless of their status at birth. She also enacted new laws to prohibit harsh governance, eliminate the appointment of extraneous family members to official sinecures, ease the financial burdens on the working class, and listen to the voices of the people. In the eyes of commoners, how important would the stains on her reputation be, beside these great achievements? Murong Mengzi. Murong Mengzi. Murong Lian said the name to himself a few times and couldn't help snorting with laughter. Murong Mengzi, 9th son of the imperial family. His mother feared... What? Hold on. Okay, we're just gonna... I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna back up a second. Okay. I can't... Murong Mengzi, 9th son of the imperial family. His mother feared he would be murdered by the Empress in his infancy, so she colluded with the former elder of Shenong Terrace to hide his true sex with medicine. Murong Chen had spent a lifetime wary of Murong Lian, but it seemed he'd focused on the wrong person. The prophesied strife among siblings and disharmony between brothers didn't indicate Murong Lian at all, but rather Princess Mengzi, whom he'd always thought to be his little sister. Okay, okay, okay. Henry. See, I, no, I can't say anything. I just, I'm just at Meatbun. Meatbun. What? I, I should have expected this. There was even something in, see, you know how they're like talking about the three gentlemen of Changhua? and how there's like this irony that like they're still calling it the Three Gentlemen of Changhua, even though one of them is a woman. And I'm sure Meatbun was just like laughing the whole time. Okay, and now the prophecy about the brothers makes so much sense. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. At this thought, Murong Lian laughed harder. Murong Mengze was capable of lying dormant for almost 30 years as a woman, capable of deceiving the world for the prize of the throne. How vicious he was. Still a girl boss. Possessed of such ruthless character, there was no one who could hope to deprive him of what he wanted. Thankfully, Murong Lian hadn't known the secret for long. He'd only learned it during the time he'd been unconscious in Murong Mengze's care. Given Mengze's prodigious talents, with a little more time, Murong Lian was sure the matter of him impersonating a princess for so many years would soon be rarely mentioned. And as for those secret scandals known to so few, they would eventually be ground to dust by the passage of time. So am I to understand that Murong Lian was like lying unconscious and just like heard things and somehow like understood things while unconscious? Like what? It, Henry, I'm so glad you weren't spoiled for this too. I thought that you knew like all the spoilers. Wangshu Manor remained as it was, standing ready should Murong Lian ever return. Shihe Manor, in contrast, had been repurposed into a house of mercy on housekeeper Li Wei's orders, used to shelter the poor and homeless until they could stand on their own two feet. Li Wei said that if Shihe Jun were still alive, he would be glad to see it. Yue Chunqing stayed in the capital, but handed over to Zhang Fuli all of the mechanism diagrams Murong Chuyi had drawn in his lifetime. He hoped Zhang Fuli would take them far away from those who would misuse them. Blades wielded by the kind are used for protection, while those wielded by the evil become tools for slaughter, he'd said. Fourth Uncle wouldn't want his diagrams to fall into the hands of those without benevolence, so I asked Medicine Master Zhang to choose somewhere safe to seal these away. I need them to bring back Murong Chuyi too, okay? I think they could do it. Zhang Fuli sealed Murong Chuyi's diagrams beneath the divine Haitong tree on Chen Tong's immortal island, that sacred tree that had begun to gain sentience. Had begun. The tree was righteous by nature and had long gained the ability to tell good from evil. There could be no safer place to entrust Murong Chuyi's last wishes than with this silent guardian. Perhaps in decades, or centuries, or even a millennium. Another Grand Master Artificer, with a heart as kind as Murong Chuyi's, might emerge in the mortal world, capable of carrying on his legacy of boundless compassion. These people had grand ideals. Murong Lian did not. He was an ordinary man with countless flaws. He was no hero, nor did he care much about things outside his control. At the moment, he merely wanted to build his own academy and teach his incoming disciples the 6 virtues, 6 arts, and 6 teachings that all gentlemen must master. Maybe he would end up with a student like Chen Tong or Hua Poan. There was much he couldn't plan for, but there was one thing he could ensure. In fact, he'd made it the first doctrine of his academy. All students would be taught according to their aptitude. As a headmaster, he would never let those whose talent lay in illusion techniques be forced to cultivate with the chin. It was good to be in charge. Murong Lian sighed with satisfaction. He brushed some dust from his robes and coughed before moseying his way home. When he passed through the bustling market streets, he spied an old man selling meat pies. They were crisp and golden brown, calling to mind those famous pastries at the northern frontier. Murong Lian glanced at the stall and stopped. "Hey, old man, get me a pie." "Alrighty." Murong Lian seemed to hesitate for a moment. "Make it two." Delighted, the old man scooped up two golden brown and crispy pies to hand to him. But Murong Lian didn't leave. He stood for a while longer before adding with great reluctance, "Never mind. Give me three." The old man blinked. With three piping hot pastries in hand, Murong Lian made his way home. He'd merely bought them because it was convenient, he told himself. He hadn't been thinking of anyone in particular. He wasn't thinking of them as family. Not at all. Regardless of how Murong Lian disdained them, there were two people secretly living in his house. Okay. I can't do this. And it's I have like 10 minutes. I can't. Meatbun, help. Okay. There were two people secretly living in his house. They'd come to call on the third day he arrived in Linyi and scared him half to death. If their old friends from the capital heard these two were still alive, Murong Lian scoffed. Who knew what might follow? He strolled the whole way home. When he pushed open the door, he found someone in the corridor, moving a little stool into place so he could hang up a colorful lantern. The man wore robes of blue and white, his long hair tied high on his head. He was grinning from ear to ear, his skin the healthy gold of barley, his features handsome and sweet. When he heard Murong Lian entering, he lowered his long lashes and looked at him in the flickering lantern light. His black eyes glittered like the dazzling night sky. So, he does have his eyes back, which makes sense. I as much as anything would. Murong Lian gnashed his teeth in frustration. Gumong, could you have some self-awareness? You're a guest hiding in my manor. Who gave you the right to change the decor? The man busy hanging flower lanterns in the hall was none other than the General Gu, whom everyone had presumed dead, Gumong. Before Gumong could reply, another man emerged from the hall. He was tall and elegantly handsome, his skin as pale and clear as ice, also wearing the rough-spun cloth robes of commoners. Who else could this man be but Moshi, whose whereabouts were unknown? Moshi was holding a newly made lantern. He handed it to Gumong, who grinned as he reached over from his perch on the chair. Thanks, Moshidi. You're welcome. Murong Lian fumed. You two really think this is your own home, don't you? Yup, Liandi. Gumong, are you tired of living? You're going to be a headmaster soon. We've come to help you teach your disciples. Even if we use fake names, we still have all our skills. You're getting them for a bargain. We're family, after all. Gumong hung up the lantern and hopped down from the stool, ducking as Murong Lian took a swing at him. Hey, we're all family here, so if you have something to say it nicely, all right? Who's your family? Who's going to speak nicely to you? Gumong cackled and dashed away down the corridor. Moshi stood speechlessly watching the two of them, a slight grimace on his face. Perhaps when people said survivors of great tragedy got a new lease on life, this was what they meant. Okay, are we finally getting answers? When Moshi chose to die with the demon blood beast, he'd been prepared for eternal damnation. The god of the reversal stone had told him his soul was doomed to scatter on the wind, forever excluded from the wheel of reincarnation. He'd never expected a trip down the Yellow Springs Road would result in a chance to return to life. The god of the reversal stone hadn't been as powerless as everyone thought. Even if he was merely a flickering remnant of the deity that created the stone, saving the lives of a few mortals posed no challenge, especially when their bodies were still full of the potent spiritual energy of both spirit and demon beasts. But to obtain the reversal stone's salvation, the mortals in question had to save themselves. Only those who redeemed their own hearts and passed the reversal stone's trial would gain its protection and be brought ashore. It could reverse wounds, reverse pain, reverse a heart that had been destroyed, reverse eyes that had paled to azure blue, even reduce death itself. This was the show of remorse, and the recompense given by the god of the reversal stone to the chosen tool of fate. At the end of the Soul River, on the Yellow Springs Road, Moshi had taken the reversal stone, which glowed with divine light. He'd made his wish and asked it to complete the last step of its mission on Earth. Its magic had made Gumong's body hale and whole again, as if he'd never undergone black magic tempering. It had restored both Moshi and Gumong's lives, and only waited to send them wherever they wanted. But where do you wish to go? In the mist and rumbling echoes of the realm in the reversal stone, Moshi and Gumong, reunited after untold calamity, looked at each other. Gumong grinned. I'll go wherever you go. Gumong Goga will never trick you again. It's all over. I'm no longer a spy, a traitor, or even a general. I'm no one but Gumong, your Gushishong, your Gumong Goga. I only need to protect you. I only need to stay with you. Okay, so they didn't have to, like, pick a point in time to go back to do something to fix the way fate had gone. They just had to ask it to, like, fix things this time, is what it sounds like, which is a lot less complicated. I'm not totally sure that's what happened, but it sounds like things were a lot simpler than I thought it would be, at least in that sense. Where they wanted to go was, of course, away from the capital. The capital's hegemony would sustain itself for thousands of years. The city plagued by schemes and manipulations. Now that the Liao Kingdom's army had retreated, Chonghua welcomed a long-lasting peace. Moshi had thrown the Shuairan Jade Scroll into the river to tell Mengzi one thing. He had no interest in vengeance or conflict, but he would always be watching what Chonghua would become in the hands of its new ruler. Murong Mengzi had not yet proven himself unworthy of this opportunity. He was by no means a pure-hearted idealist, but his goals and Murong Chen's had never aligned. Murong Chen yearned to rule as the supreme overlord of the 9 provinces, while Murong Mengzi sought to be known as a virtuous ruler and a wise monarch. I'm gonna stop for a second and see... Okay, I gotta go. Yeah. Unfortunately, because I'm almost at the end of the chapter, but I just, like, have to leave now. So, I think I have like 1 minute. I don't know. I think I just should stop now. I'm so sorry. That's super awkward. We're almost done with the chapter. We are on the top of page 107 of the chapter grand finale. Um, which we will actually finish and then pick up on again next week. Um, that was a lot. That was wow, okay. I did not go in expecting any of that today. So, thank y'all for being here for that. Yeah, I will see you next week. Peace out.